My name is Kathy Cunningham. I'm the Executive Director of the Village Preservation Society of East Hampton, which is a not-for-profit 501c3 organization committed to historic preservation in the Village of East Hampton and its surrounds. This year we have a historic election for our village board, and I'm conducting a series of conversations with the mayoral candidates. I'm going to start with Trustee and Deputy Mayor Barbara Barsack, who's kind enough to join us today. Given the, VPS ordinarily does a different kind of a debate with our candidates, but with the pandemic, we really weren't able to organize what we generally do. So we asked all of the candidates to fill out a questionnaire, which is on our website, and I urge our viewers to take a look at the Village Preservation Society website. You'll see village election over to the right, and if you click on that, you'll see all the names of all the candidates, and if you click on those names, you'll be able to read the questions and answers that each of the candidates were kind enough to provide for us. So I'll start by thanking Barbara Barsack for doing such a thorough job on your questionnaire. But because we've already dealt with many of the issues that are relevant to the Village Preservation Society, its members and trustees, I thought today we could have a little more informal conversation and just kind of, my goal today is to pretend like I'm a newcomer in town and get a little more information about you and your opponents in a more personal way, a little more philosophical rather than issues-based. It's been a very issues-based event. The election has been very issues-based. So I'm just going to offer a couple of questions, Barbara, and ask you to just talk about things a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Sure, absolutely.
Just conversation starters. So I'll start by asking, how would you characterize your relationship with the village, and how long have you lived here?
I've been here my whole life. I think my family goes back at least 5 generations on this property where I live, and where
Wow.
the family still owns 4 houses on this property.
Right.
The family business was right across the street. It was a blacksmith shop, and they were among the early settlers here. Not the earliest, but they were here, quite early, and were very active in settling East Hampton. I had, great-grandfather who was a town justice and on the town board, and they were very active in civic affairs. So it's kind of a family thing for me.
Okay, well that's interesting. So how do your feelings about the village influence your concept of governance?
Well, I guess because I've lived here all my life and listened growing up to conversations. My father had a business here in the village, so I was always very cognizant of that balance between residents and businesses in the village.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I raised my own children here. So I think the village has been so much a part of my life. I can't imagine not living here.
Right.
It's just part of who I am. I think it's really a part of who I am.
Right. Oh, great. Thanks. So this is a sort of a fantastic idea, but if you could wave a magic wand, what would you change about East Hampton?
Well, I'd love to get rid of some of the traffic. I tell people all the time, when I was 5 years old, I walked from here, which is on Accabonac Road, up to Newtown Lane to kindergarten.
Right.
Every day. Can you imagine letting a 5-year-old cross North Main Street? North Main Street I had to cross. I mean, when my children were growing up, it was impossible. Right. I had to take them up and cross them if they were going to go across. So sure. It's a very different place than it was, when I was growing up. But I think that gives me a nice sort of feel for the best of the village. What's the best about a community, and because everything changes, we can't keep things the way they were forever. In the 1950s, they're not going to be the same forever. Right. Every place changes. But I think that gives me a good sense of what's the best about East Hampton, and it's community. It's the community that makes it what it is, and the people that make it what it is, and the people that make the government what it is. I mean, it's people who really care about the community that make a difference here.
Right. Well, that sort of leads into my next question, which is what do you value most about the Village of East Hampton? But I suspect you've just told me that. And unless you have something you want to add, I think we've covered it.
No,
But
I love it. It's a great community, you know, no matter how many residents there are, there's still a wonderful core community of people who love this place and who work hard for it and give of themselves and, you know, give back to the community in wonderful ways. You know that because you do it yourself. So it's just something that, you know, is part of who we are. And that's what makes it a great place.
right. Well, thanks. How would you describe the village to a newcomer?
Oh boy, that's an interesting one. A newcomer, I'd say it's a community that's very diverse in certain ways, not in other ways. It's economically very diverse. It's in terms of people's backgrounds, it's very diverse. I have friends who've been here for 3 years. I have friends who I grew up with. I have friends of all kinds, you know, in the village. And I find that invigorating. I love meeting new people that have come here and hearing their stories and what brought them here and learning about who they were and where they came from. I think it's an exciting place to live. I really do. Especially being so close to New York City. We get a lot of that influence here, which is in terms of culturally, it's very exciting and it's nice to have that influence right here.
Right.
I think it's an exciting place. I really do. I love it. It's not a sleepy little town. It's a nice, exciting, vibrant place, I think.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. Thank you. What is your vision for the village?
I think my vision for the village is always to maintain the great quality of life for the residents. I think we sometimes forget that the village is 90% residential. You know, some people tend to think of it as just the commercial district, which it's not. It's a huge residential community, and the residents need to be protected. They need us to always be thinking about issues like traffic and noise and construction, all those things that happen in a busy place. So my vision is to protect the residents, to make sure it continues to be a great place to live. We don't want to be the generation that kills the goose that laid the golden egg. We want to be the generation that protects it and continues to make it a great place, I think.
Okay, great. Thank you. So in your view, what are the most important characteristics of an effective leader?
Well, I think there are different kinds of leadership, and I think they can all be effective depending on the person. Right. My leadership type is more consensus building. I like to work with community groups. I love committees. I love hearing from a lot of different people, what their opinions are, and getting ideas from a lot of different people. So I believe in consensus building. I think that's very important, and that's my leadership style. Other people have different styles, and I think any of them can be effective if they're done well.
Okay, that's a good answer. Okay, so here's the here's the big question. Why the office of mayor and why now?
Well, it's a kind of a natural step for me because I've been on the board of trustees for 20 years now. There have been things over those years that I would have liked to have seen move forward that maybe didn't, and I would be in a position where I can move some of those things forward now if I'm in the office of the mayor. And I think it's just. I just love East Hampton so much, and I want to make sure that it's protected. And so for me, it's making sure that it's in the hands of somebody who loves it that much and is more in this for the village than for any other reason.
Okay, thanks. That's a good answer. Okay, so switching here a little bit, what is one of your favorite historic places in the village and why?
Oh gosh, that's a really hard one because, I've been on the board of the Historical Society for over 30 years, so I love all of the historic sites. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. I love Mulford Farm. I love to walk around there. I love Home Sweet Home. I guess I would have to say Mulford Farm because it's like a little oasis in the middle of one of the busiest places in the world. But that whole historic district there, I think, is very special. I love walking along that sidewalk there and going from one to another and seeing the houses. Even, all of Main Street, I think, is very special.
Right.
So, but if I had to choose one, I mean, Hook Mill, of course, I live in the shadow of Hook Mill, so I love Hook Mill. And I love the cemetery behind Hook Mill. There are just so many great spots to explore. Right. But if I had to pick one, I guess it would be Mulford Farm.
Okay. Sorry to pressure you. It's really more,
That's a hard thing.
Yeah. No, it is. It's hard, especially for someone that's been as involved as you have. But, I'm trying to ask these questions from the point of view of someone that doesn't know anything,
Well,
so.
and at least you kept it to the village, because if you said the town, that would make it much more difficult.
That'd be much worse, yes.
I had a great-great-grandfather who was the lighthouse keeper in Montauk.
Is that right? I don't think I knew that.
That's a special place for me. I love to go to the lighthouse. I always feel like I'm going back to the old homestead, where my great.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the first places we always take our guests and say, this was commissioned by George Washington.
Right.
Anyway.
It's a great spot.
Yeah. Okay, so we're switching themes again here. What percentage of the village tax base is residential and what percentage commercial?
Oh gosh, I don't know the answer to that. Not the tax base, I don't know. I know that 90% of the village is residential.
Residential, okay.
About 90%, but I can't tell you a percentage in terms of tax base.
Right.
I think it might be more than that residentially, but
yeah. Well, I think it would probably.
I don't want to give you a number that's wrong, and
I understand. Yeah. Well, so that's. But the fact that you said it was 90% residential, this leads into the next. I've got a little set of questions here that are relative to that.
Okay.
How does that proportion really of residential to commercial affect your the decision making when the need arises, if there are conflicts between those constituencies, between
again, I think
commercial needs.
I did address that a little bit. I mean, I think the residents' needs have to come first.
Right.
But as I said, I grew up in a family that had a business in the village, so I understand the balance. We have to take care of our commercial core, and I think the residents want us to. I think the residents want a vital commercial core, but I think we always have to be aware of where the boundaries are and how we protect the neighbors around the commercial core. Right. So I think that's sometimes a challenge, but then the residents have to come first.
Right. Thank you. How do you frame the problem of expanding commercial interests in the residential districts?
How do I frame the problem? I would not want to see that happen. There's, as far as I'm concerned, that should never happen.
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of, I guess to put some perspective on it, Airbnb and VRBO, those tend to be sort of, and listen, I'm not against people renting their homes for, within the regulatory framework, but we know that there's more frequency, and actually it does kind of commercialize the residential area as a practical matter, It
really turns it into a hotel zone is what it does. That's not fair to the residents. So we have been actively looking at companies that come in and work with us to identify all the homes that are being rented out. This is what they do. We pay them a fee per property.
Right.
We've interviewed a couple of them. That's something that I think will probably be in place by next summer, so that we can control what's going on in the neighborhoods. We do have codes in place now that people are only supposed to rent their property for two-week periods in a year. And we know that's happening much more frequently than that. So what we have to do when we decide to hire one of these companies is the first thing we have to do is decide, is that the way we want it to be? Is there any change we need to make to the code Do we think that's fair, 2-week periods? And that's something that the board will have to discuss. And then this company will be sort of the police department, if you will. You know, they'll be keeping track of what's going on and watching the rentals and actually sending notices to people who are not in compliance, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So that's something that I absolutely agree. We can't have that out of control.
Thank you. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you think of the outside dining in the commercial district? It's been a new feature as a result of the pandemic, and I have a feeling that people are liking it. I wondered what your sense of it was.
I think some people like it. I've heard from other people who don't like it. So I think it's a balance. I think that we can allow some outdoor dining. I don't think it should be on the sidewalks where have to have pedestrian access. There are ADA issues. I don't think it can be necessarily down where the cars are like it is now, because I think there's a danger there as well. But I do think that if there's sufficient space on property like at Rowdy Hall, we can say, for instance, Rowdy Hall has plenty of room out there on their property for tables. I have no problem with that. And I think the code can be changed to make that possible.
Okay, thanks. So switching again, I know the village has been investigating a sewage treatment plant in order to potentially increase the wet uses in the village. But I know also that from the Village Preservation Society's point of view, the water quality issues have been very serious for the whole East End, the whole of Suffolk County, really. And the village was aggressive in adopting a very a good model law for low nitrogen systems and the criteria that needed to be met, or when that need was triggered. But the sewage treatment plant that's been under discussion for quite some time, I think people are wondering how that would be paid for. I know that, finding a place for it is another matter altogether, and we won't touch that here, but I was wondering about the cost of that and how might those fees be generated.
Well, they are very expensive. There's no question about it. But there is grant money available, both federal and state grant money that's available that can help. And now we recently, as you know, with CPF money, Community Preservation Funds, we now have access to some money through community preservation funds. So I think there are avenues for funding it. There will be, of course, fees every year for people who are using it.
Right.
So, I mean, that's all still to be explored. We're in the process now of trying to figure all that out. But we'll find a way to do it.
Right.
We'll find a way to do it. I think it's important. It's important to our ponds. I mean, really, the water quality is huge. And I think our residents understand that, and they want to protect the ponds as well, Hook and Town and Georgica. We all know what's going on there. So
yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. So in light of the coronavirus, how do you see village government providing for the needs of what seems to be an expanded year-round population?
Well, I think it remains to be seen what needs to be done. I think we're all in unknown territory. And we don't know how long it's going to last. Are they going, are some of these people going to return to their other homes in the spring, and this will be a 1-year phenomenon? I think we are going to have to play by ear, which we've been doing since March.
Right.
Just kind of had to take things as they come and try to problem solve on the run, because that's what's happened. We're in completely uncharted territory.
Right.
And none of us have any experience with it. So it's about our residents. It's about their health and safety, and doing whatever we can to make sure that that's guarded.
Right.
So I can't project, because I don't know what those challenges are.
I understand. Yeah, I understand.
We'll deal with them when they come. We'll deal with what we have to deal with when the time comes.
Right. Okay. Then sort of corollary to this is, with beach access in such high demand, Why is the village still selling non-resident beach permits? I think that was something that some of my people were curious about.
Well, that was done before the pandemic. I mean, we had
right.
So we monitor very carefully every summer how many times all the parking lots are full. We look at that every year.
Mm-hmm.
We've been very careful about how many non-resident beach stickers we sell for that reason. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that long ago when there was an unlimited number sold.
Right.
And then we put a cap on it. And then we watched carefully, and then, a couple of times we changed the number because, but then, with free ride now, we find that the parking is not in as demand as much. Mm-hmm. And we opened up lot 1 after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So any village resident can use lot 1 exclusively. Non-residents cannot use that. We have found with the daily parking, and we've really been fine with parking. I mean, this year is like no other year. We really can't compare that. I haven't even gone to the beach this year because I know what the parking issue is, I mean, we tried to go at night at one time and there was no place to park. So, I think this is not a year that we can really use as an example. We've been very careful about the parking, and if we had to limit non-resident parking, we would certainly do that. I mean, it's all about the residents. They're the ones that pay for the maintenance of the beaches, but that income is also important too to the village. So, and that helps keep our taxes lower.
Yeah.
So
sorry about that.
We have to keep that balance.
Thank you. And so I have one more question here because we're getting close to 20 minutes, which is amazing.
I know it goes fast.
Really fast. With the benefit of hindsight, is there anything in your professional life that you look back on and wish you had done differently?
Oh, of course. I mean, doesn't everybody have things they wish they'd done differently? I mean, of course. You don't want specifics, do you?
Well, no.
I just lost the time. I don't know.
No, I know. I mean, I know it's sort of a personal question, but to my mind, it reflects the ability to, be reflective about one's professional life. Certainly there are times in my own, experience that I thought, oh, I should have done X instead of Y. And I think with respect to an elected official, it's just good for people to know that folks think, I should have, that you have the capacity to reflect and say, yes, I have made some mistakes and I wish I had done something differently.
No question about it. And, there are times when you say, okay, that's never going to happen again.
Right.
Next time we'll have a public hearing. Next time we'll, because things do happen that, none of us, and we do the best we can, but, we're going to make mistakes. That's just human. So, and so much of what we do is projecting. I mean, we're trying to assume, what's going to happen, and it's not always what happens.
No, that's right. That's right.
We have to, either go back and change things or do better the next time.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that we're about at the end here of 20 minutes, and I want to thank you so much for sparing some time for us. And I wish you luck in the campaign going forward, and good luck with the rest of the campaign, Barbara. And thanks a lot for your time.
And thank you for organizing this. This is great.
Thing. I'm hope you enjoyed it. I sure did.
Yeah, I love talking to you, Kathy.
Okay.
We've been for a long time, so.
All right. Thank you, and have a good evening. Right. Bye now. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the VPS Mayoral Candidates Conversations. This is the second conversation I'm having with candidate trustee Arthur Graham, and we're going to be talking in a more informal way. The Village Preservation Society of East Hampton is a not-for-profit civic group that does preservation work in the village and the surrounding area, and generally we have a more a formal debate where we have a round table with various candidates, and we have everybody get a chance to talk to each other and discuss the issues at hand. Given the pandemic this year, we had to change our pattern, as many do. and we asked the candidates to fill out questionnaires which covered the topics that were of concern to our board and our issues that our members have brought to us over time. The answers to those questions are available on the VPS website, and that link will be shown on this tape at some point. But I'd like to just have a more informal discussion now, something a little more philosophical with a candidate, Arthur Tiger Graham, who's running for mayor. So thank you for joining us, Tiger. And I just want to give you a chance to understand that we're not, we appreciate you having filled out the questionnaires in such detail, which would be very helpful for the electorate to review in terms of your candidacy. But today I'm going to ask you some questions as if we've never met before, and I'm brand new to the situation. So I'm going to be asking you questions I know the answers to, but just to give people a more rounded view of your candidacy and who you are.
Okay, Kathy Cunningham, Cub reporter.
Excuse me?
Cub reporter.
Cub reporter, exactly. That's the way it was, or something along those lines. Anyway, so how would you characterize your relationship with the village, Tiger, and how long have you lived here?
I bought this house that I'm sitting in right now in 1983. We closed on it, I think, December 21st. We raised our children here in the summertime. I was obviously a citiate for a while. And we moved out here full-time in 2003 when we sold our apartment in the city. I still kept working in the city 2 days a week and working 3 days a week from home here. And I've always been involved with the village. I've been on the board of the Historical Society, most recently serving as president, currently serving as treasurer. I was chairman of the Thomas Moran Trust, what we call TMT2. As the house was about to tumble into matchsticks, we started the restoration of that. And you can see I was chairman of that for a period of time. We did I think, a pretty good job on restoring that house. Historic preservation, I have always been not a slave to, but I really do care about it. It's, is what we have that we can never get back if we lose it. I was appointed to a water quality board, I think in 2014 by Mayor Rickenbach. I ran for the board seat for the last year of Albert Edwards's term, who unfortunately passed away. I ran for that in June of 2017 and won that election. And then, as it was only 1 year left in his term, I ran again in 2018 along with Rose Brown, where we ran as the agents of needed change in the village. The village government was getting a little sclerotic and a little bit one-party rule and no dissenting voices. And Rose and I won in a landslide. And I'm now running for mayor.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So how do you think your feelings about the village influence your concept of governance of the village?
I don't know if my feelings for the village have anything to do with it. My feelings for the village are strong. I love this village. It's the most beautiful village in America. But my view of governance is not so much about the village, but about the people. I had a 30-plus year career in finance on Wall Street. I ran a 240-man sales force nationally, which I can tell you is like herding cats. I was in charge of fixed income sales and trading operations. I was pretty successful. And I can use all of the skills that I learned in dealing with all these cats. Okay. You know, you have to be collaborative. You have to find a way to set the policy that everybody buys into. Because if they don't buy into it and they're in San Francisco and you're in New York, you know, you're not going to get on an airplane to go slap them. You know, I mean, you have to make sure that they buy into what you're trying to do. And I was pretty successful at getting that done. And I don't see much difference, except that we have, you know, 1,000 people in the village, as opposed to 250 or 240 salesmen. You still have to be just as collaborative and get everyone to buy in. One of my watchwords was, or watch phrases, was reasonable people can come up with a reasonable solution to any problem.
Right.
And it's true. But the answer is reasonable people.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you change in the village?
I'd like to create more parks. I would like for taxes to go down. I would like for services to go up, but you need a magic wand for that.
Well, that's true. That is very true. That's very true. Okay. What do you value the most about the village of East Hampton?
Boy, as they say when you're stalling for time, that's a great question, Kathy. I think what I like most about the village is the people. You know, we have such wonderful resources of people. I love the beaches. I love the commercial core. I mean, we live in a beautiful place. And I want to keep it that way. You know, I mean, one of our campaign slogans this time is balanced progress. Because we all know change is coming. And if you don't manage it properly, it's going to come up and bite you in the behind.
Right.
And we are going to be on top of that change, not letting it get too wild, not letting it go too fast, but making sure that we are responsive to the people in the village. I want our government to be nimble. One of the things that I have had, not a problem with, but one of the things that annoys me about village government, it takes so long to do everything. You know, now admittedly, these past 6 months with this COVID stuff.
Right, it's a different circumstance.
Huge monkey wrenches into everything.
Right.
But, you know, ordinarily, I would have liked to have had the wastewater treatment plant, would have liked to have had that advanced to a place where we could have had public meetings on. And, you know, be going towards the process of creating a sanitary district so we'd be able to fund this project.
Right.
I mean, we're not there yet right now because of this.
Right. Well, thank you for that. So the next question I had is, what is your vision for the village? But maybe you discussed that in your magic wand portion, but if there's something more you wanted to say about that, I would give you the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, my vision for the village is a place where the inns can make some money without driving their neighbors nuts. A place where we can have more village vitality. I think that we've seen with having the outdoor dining on the sidewalks. I mean, that makes the village feel much more fun, doesn't it? You know, I think that I'd like to have more restaurants in the village. I don't think I want bars and discotheques, but, you know, I think we want to be the East Hampton version. We're not trying to become Sag Harbor. We're East Hampton Village, okay? And we are not be something else, but I want to be a little bit more lively. If we have more restaurants, that'll create more foot traffic. More foot traffic will feed patrons into all the other businesses in the village. And so maybe we find some of the stores stay open a little later. Maybe we find some of the stores may want to stay open all year long. You know, all of these things are things that I would love to see the village
Right.
and modernize our infrastructure.
Hmm.
Because what we have with all the Airbnbs is a huge load on our infrastructure.
Right.
And we need to upgrade the infrastructure, not necessarily to handle the Airbnbs, but, you know, we are a resort community and people come here for resort amenities.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Excuse me. How would you describe the village to a newcomer?
I would say it is a beautiful, friendly little village. I would say we have beautiful beaches. We have wonderful neighborhoods. You know, we have huge houses and we have little houses. And you know what? They all go together.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, we are in all senses a pretty tight community here in the village.
Right.
And we are America's most beautiful village.
Okay. That's a good description. Okay, so this question is, there's kind of two questions in one. In your view, what are the most important characteristics of an effective leader, and what is your leadership style?
I think the most important parts of leadership are, first, I think part of it is personality.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a little bit more of an outgoing personality. You have to be able to elucidate where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be dynamic. You also have to be honest. You also have to be ethical. You have to be open to listening to what other people say. You have to be willing to have your mind changed by listening to someone. I think that these are all parts of what go into leadership. And as I said earlier, when talking about my career, I believe I have all of these traits.
Right.
Leadership.
Okay, great. Thank you. So why the seat of mayor and why now?
Well, to tell you the truth, my wife told me that if I wanted to run for mayor, I could do so with my second wife.
Oh, Kathy, Don Cardi is calling.
And I frankly, as you probably know, I was supporting Barbara Borsak for mayor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she said, look, my turn. And I said, okay, Barbara, I'll support you. And then in March, after Jerry had been campaigning for a full year, no one had heard a peep out of Barbara. Mm-hmm. And I told Barbara that because many of the people that I know who are village voters were all, beginning to say, well, I think I may vote for Jerry. And I frankly do not think Jerry Larson would be good for this village. I think he would be destructive for the village. He wants to change everything all at once. You know what? We'll just do this or we'll just do that. That's not the measured process that we need. And so that's why I'm running for mayor.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. What percentage of the village tax base is residential and what percentage is commercial property? And the related follow-up question for that is, does that proportion, I don't know if you know what the proportion is, and if you do, if you could tell us, and does that affect your decision-making when the needs of those two constituencies are sometimes in conflict?
I do not know what the breakup is, the valuation. Right. I would suggest, however, that it is highly skewed towards residential paying more of the taxes.
Right.
I think most of the properties along Main Street and Newtown Avenue don't pay a whole lot in taxes. There are a fair number of them, but I don't think they pay a lot of taxes.
Right.
I think most of the taxes are paid by the residents.
Right.
And, I'm a resident. I pay my taxes.
Right.
I think that I don't really see it as between the two sides, however, because I think in reality, what you do for the businesses, okay, you're really doing for the taxpayers as well, because it is all part of the same village. And if we make the commercial core more attractive, or we do some work in there that makes it look better, I mean, that benefits everyone.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So I don't really know that there's a food fight there, resources.
Okay. All right. So this question is, how do you frame the problem of expanding commercial uses in residential districts?
I'll tell you exactly how I frame it. You don't.
Okay.
You don't. You know, the village plan and village vision statement and the comprehensive plan say that, you know, the commercial core is the commercial core, the industrial core is the industrial core, and the residential core is everything else.
Right.
And that's where it stands.
Okay.
You know, for example, the inns, who I'm very supportive of the inns as part of the historic fabric of the village, they cannot expand on the neighboring properties. They're pre-existing non-conforming uses that cannot be expanded.
Okay, that kind of that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good smack, right?
There you go. And what do you think about? You mentioned this earlier, but if you want to elaborate, what do you think about outside dining in the commercial district in the village? Because it was a new feature of the pandemic, but you alluded to earlier that you thought it was a good thing. If you have anything more to say about that.
I just think that the expansion of the restaurants to be able to have dining on the sidewalks, there are pluses and minuses to it. You know, we lose parking spaces because we don't want cars backing into the diners.
Right.
You know, I think maybe we can figure out a better way to do that where we don't lose the parking spaces. But I think that it makes the village more fun. The people that sit at those tables aren't scowling. They see time. I mean, I think that this is something that we need to continue. Okay.
All right, great. Now this is an off topic, or well, not off topic, but a different vein here. How much, excuse me, how much will the sewage treatment plant cost, and how will this revenue be generated?
I don't really know exactly what it's going to cost.
Okay.
I have an idea that to sewer the main commercial core, let's say from the LVIS to Cinderella and up to the middle school.
Right.
I think, and then building the actual sewage treatment plant on a different location.
Right.
And piping up to it. I think it's going to be in the $10 to $15 million range.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure that that's what it is, but that we would fund that with a 30-year bond.
Okay.
Or that's currently how I would look to do it.
Right. I understand. Yeah.
We created a sanitary district, which would pay 80% of the cost of the sewer. And, you know, depending on what the village residents say, since all village residents would be getting a benefit, the sewer plan, I would, you know, charge the village something as well.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Not to put it 100% on the users, 80 or 90% on the users. I did a couple of back of the envelope
calculations,
and it looks like that would be reasonable.
Right.
As we get deeper into this, our consultants will also help us out with
firmer numbers, but that's good to hear because it wasn't clear, you know. No,
yeah, I know that Jerry Larson is talking about charging $3 an hour for parking to pay for it.
Right.
There in $15 million, there are a lot of $3s.
Right. Right.
I think that, I don't know that everybody in the village would be down with that. I know that my wife had said that if she has to go buy a $2 head of lettuce at the grocery store and ends up paying $5 for it, she'll be down at Village Hall with a pitchfork.
Well, we don't want that for a number of reasons.
Believe me, I know.
Okay, so in light of the coronavirus, how do you see village government providing for the needs of what seems to be an expanded year-round population?
Well, I think that it may require additions to village staff.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know about Hampton schools. I have heard that Amagansett is doubling in size.
Yeah.
I don't know about the other school districts. I think that we probably will have more year-round residents out here.
Mhm.
And again, at infrastructure, you know, I mean, more residents means more cars on the roads, means faster wear on the streets. There are going to be a lot that we have to deal with about this.
Right.
And we'll deal with it cheerfully.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, the people own these houses. They've been paying taxes on them, just like year-round residents. You know, hey, they paid.
Right.
They're welcome.
No, I understand. Okay. Well, thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it may cost a little more money, but
Right.
you know,
Right. With beach access in such high demand, why is the village still selling non-resident beach permits?
because money.
Because money. Okay.
I think
Fair answer.
in reality, the beach access this year is in much more demand because we've had to close half the parking lots.
Right.
All right, and so with diminished parking lot capacity, I know that one of your board members is annoyed that he has to go to the beach early to get a parking place.
Uh-huh.
And frankly, I would be annoyed if I were him too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that rather than, you know, certainly sling the arrow to the village. I mean, I volunteered for this job. I was elected, you know, I'm here, hit me with it. All right. But, you know, don't let the governor off either,
Right.
because he's the one that mandated that we close half the lots.
Yeah. No, I understand.
You know, I mean, but I think that what we want to do is we want to get maximum flexibility for all of these things.
Right.
You know, our new license plate reader parking system
Right.
will enable us, after it runs for a while, we'll be able to know what cars stay in what lots, in what section, and for how long.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll be able to figure out, you know, where we can do things and where we can't.
Right.
So if demand on the lots really turns out to be more in the morning, maybe at afternoon, you offer a third hour of parking to village for free.
Right.
And you sell a third hour of parking to non-village residents. And this way, everybody can go see a movie in the afternoon.
Right. Well, that'd be something different, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now you get an $80 ticket or you have to get up and leave.
I know, it's terrible. Okay, so this question, with the benefit of hindsight, is there anything in your professional life that you look back on and wish you had done differently?
Oh my God. I would say the list is longer than both of my arms. You know, when you look back at what you've done and you say, I could have done that better. I could have done that. Anyone that says they couldn't have done it better, frankly, isn't or wasn't really trying.
Right.
I mean, you try new things and sometimes they work and people say, hey, that's great. And sometimes you try something and it doesn't work. People say, what are you thinking? You know, I mean, there's a lot of things I go back and change.
Right. Right.
But you can't.
Right.
We can only go forward.
Right. Well, that's good, Tiger. I really appreciate that. And we've sort of come to the end of our time. So I want to thank you very much for having this little chat with me. Mm-hmm. And I wish you great good luck in the election. And, I'll see you at the movies.
See you around the resort, Kathy.
Okay. Thanks, Tiger. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Kathy, and thanks
Okay.
yes for doing this.
Okay. Bye-bye. Good afternoon, and welcome to the third installment of the Village Preservation Society of East Hampton's Mayoral Candidates Conversations. My name is Kathy Cunningham, and our last conversation is happening with mayoral candidate and former village police chief Jerry Larson. The Village Preservation Society is a not-for-profit organization, the mission of which is to preserve historic structures, quality of life, and neighborhood character in the village of East Hampton. And every election cycle, we've conducted a debate format with elected officials. This year, as you probably know, is a historic election for the mayor's, the entire village board, really, or the open seats. And ordinarily we would have conducted a debate, but we couldn't get that organized, and the pandemic kind of put the kibosh on that for us. So we asked all the candidates to fill out questionnaires that our board put together with questions that are of concern to village residents. Those answers and the questions can be found on our Village Preservation Society website. If you go on there, you'll see a tab for a village election, and each of the candidates and their running mates have filled out a questionnaire with the answers to the questions that we proposed. But we thought that it might be helpful for the office of chief elected official to have a more philosophical conversation with each of the mayoral candidates, and they've been kind enough to join me today. I have a few questions that I'm going to ask that are more conversation starters, but they're not as issue driven as most of the questions on our questionnaire were, although there are a few in there. So welcome, Jerry, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for having me on, and thank the Preservation Society for me.
Sure. We're happy to do it. I'm going to ask you questions, most of which I likely know the answers to, but I'm pretending I'm a person new to this, and that, I'm hoping it'll fill in some of the background for each of you. I've been asking everybody the same group of questions. So it may seem silly that I'm asking you something I know the answer to. So, just be patient with that part.
Sure.
Anyway, how would you characterize your relationship with the village, and how long have you lived here?
I moved into the village when I was a child. So I think I started second or third grade at the elementary school, and I lived on Buell Lane. I grew up there until I graduated high school, and then I lived on several other locations in the village.
Right.
And then I became a village police officer I started off as a traffic control officer in 1983.
Oh boy.
I rose up through the ranks, and then in 2003, I was promoted to chief of police. And I was actually the youngest police chief in the state of New York at the time.
Is that right? I don't think I knew that. That's
39 years old. So, and then I worked as chief for 14 years. And during that time period, I also took over the emergency management position for the village. You prepare for the hurricanes, you're there during the hurricanes. We coordinate the highway department, the fire department, the ambulance, and the police. That's what the emergency manager does. That was my job. We also coordinated with the town emergency manager and management team. In 2011, I was assigned to take over the townwide 911 dispatch center, which is handled by the village.
Right.
And then somewhere around 14 or 15, I was given the task to create a paid paramedic program for the village.
Oh boy.
Which we did.
Right. That's great.
And then I retired, and I moved on to, so I had a 34-year career. I really loved my job. The best part of my job was detective. I never wanted to be a detective, but at the time, Glenn Stometz promoted me to detective. And it turned out to be one of the best 10 years of my life, actually. Really? As far as police work goes. And then when I became chief, it was a whole nother, you weren't really doing crime investigations. You were doing more of hiring local people.
Yeah, it's administrative.
Which I really enjoyed that as well. And and I met a lot of great residents along the way and business owners, and I really loved my job. But you know, after a while, it just gets to be 34 years a long time. So an opportunity came.
You put in your time, yeah.
Yeah, an opportunity came up at a local estate, large estate, where I was able to manage the security there, and that's what I'm currently doing now.
Right, that's great. Thank you.
I also, I don't know if you want me to go on, but I also own a private security company, which my wife and I started in 2005.
Right.
And we're really proud to say it's grown into a very successful business, family-run business. Our son is involved.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's good. Good for you. That's good. That's nice to hear. Okay, so how do your feelings about the village influence your concept of governance?
When I started with the police department in 1983, it was a very friendly atmosphere. I thought it was, and it was family-like, if you will. And over time, I just saw it becoming divisive, very unfriendly. I mean, it's earned the title, the Village of No, because it's so restrictive. So I want, one of my main goals is to come in to be mayor and to change the perception of the Village of No. I want it to be a friendly government. I want our government to be helpful. I want our building inspectors to go out and actually help people, not just try to catch people doing something. I want to be a friendly local government, the way it used to be, in my opinion.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you change in the village?
If I could change, again, I would have to say I would like to make the village. When I was younger, let me start there. When I was younger, we had Haagen-Dazs on Main Street. We had David's Cookies. We had, there was, even when I was younger, there was a restaurant, you may remember it, where the Cook Agency is now. It had all outdoor front seating. If I could, we had Marley's, we had the newspaper store, you had friendly mom and pop stores. Everybody knew everybody. If I could wave a magic wand, I'd want to go back to have that type of community where everybody, it just seemed friendlier. It was a little slower paced. But I think we can still have that even with the craziness that we have now. I still think we can have a more friendly village. So that would be it's kind of the same concept that I'm talking about. So
yeah, no, I get it.
That's what we're going to do, Kathy. We're going to come in, we're going to wave
a magic wand.
And we're going to make the village friendly.
Yeah, hey, listen, lend me that wand, will you? I got some people in my life I could use it on. Okay, thanks for that. What do you value most about the village of East Hampton?
Again, I mean, you're going to hear this over and over. The small, close-knit community. My wife and I are out having dinner, and everybody that comes in and says hello to us, we know everybody. It's such a great feeling when you're out somewhere and your friends stop by, or people you've been acquainted with just stop by. It's a great feeling. Yeah. So that's what I really love about the village, the closeness.
That's a great answer. So how would you describe the village to a newcomer?
I would say the village is quiet. It's a beautiful village. We have the ocean, which is terrific, but our downtown is very quiet. And I would like to see it more like Sag Harbor. You know, if I have friends that come out here to visit, you know, we usually go to dinner in Sag Harbor because there's more restaurants, there's more walking around, there's something to do after the restaurant. So I would describe East Hampton as very beautiful village, but very quiet.
Right. Okay. And what is your vision for the village?
My vision for the village is a friendly government. I want to clean up some of the things that have not been taken care of, which really drive me a little crazy, like the tennis courts in Herrick Park, the basketball court. I don't know if you know about the basketball court. The basketball court was actually donated or dedicated to a young man who lost his life back in 1972, Roy Mabry. So he actually had a very promising basketball career he came out of East Hampton High School, and he had a scholarship to Princeton, is my understanding. And then that summer, before he was supposed to go away, he drowned here in East Hampton. So Coach Petrie, who everybody knows and loves, got the community together, and they donated this basketball court in Herrick Park. And then in 2008, the family was pretty horrified to find that the basketball court had been completely fallen apart because the village had not taken care of it. And then the village in 2008 resurfaced it and rededicated it. And today it's completely fallen apart again. There's been I foiled the village, Kathy. They haven't spent, in the last 7 years, they haven't spent a dime on the basketball court. I mean, to me, that's not how if I'm going to dedicate something from the village to a family, I'm going to maintain it. And that's one of the things I want to maintain. If you walk around the village, I made a video and I put it on Facebook. If you walk around the village and you really start to look at some of the things that have not been taken care of. I mean, a woman just fell the other day on an uneven sidewalk. She was part of the garden club. They were doing something on Main Street, and she took a bad fall. I went and visited her the other night, and the sidewalk just had, it's been years of no maintenance. So those are the things I want to take care of as soon as we get into office. They're easy fix. They fixed it the next day. They came and they dug up the bricks. They fixed it. They put the bricks back, and now it's a nice even sidewalk. It's not hard to do. You just have to be out there and you have to look for these things. The other thing I want to do is talk to the LVIS. They have all these beautiful trees, but they have those horrible tree surrounds that go around the trees. They're made of like railroad ties, and they're all falling apart. They're a mess, and they have wood chips. I want to see if we can do something like Belgian block around the trees, and maybe some pachysandra in the middle. I've talked to a couple of arborists, and there's no issue with doing that. It won't hurt the roots or anything. So that's another goal that I have to talk, just to make the appearance of our streets much nicer than it is now.
Okay, thank you. So this is sort of a two-part question, and you might be able to answer both with the same answer. In your view, what are the most important characteristics of an effective leader, and what is your leadership style?
My leadership style is listening to people. When I was chief of police, I would have monthly staff meetings with my personnel, and I would listen to what they had to tell me, because I'm not the one always out there doing the work.
Right.
And we might have, and we did have, policies that were in place that might have been good at one point, even one point during the year. And then by having these meetings and having people talk and feel comfortable around you, and you get their input, you can make better decisions. And that's the leader I am. I could actually, we used to joke around, I could actually discipline someone, and then we could be playing softball that weekend. So, I try to think of myself as, and I would say to the police officers, listen, if you make a mistake, expect you're going to be punished. Expect you're going to be held responsible. I love my kids. I hold them to the same standards. So that's the type of leader I am. And I would never ask anyone to do anything that I wouldn't do. So those are the qualities: listening, caring, and empathetic and sympathetic, I think, are good qualities.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, this is the jackpot question. Why the mayor's position, and why now?
Well, I really enjoyed being chief of police, and I enjoyed hiring new people and helping the community. And to be honest with you, I do miss that. But the other thing that really bothers me is what I said in the beginning when we opened, is that I see the village turning very divisive and very unfriendly. And that's why I want to change it. And it was just my time now to do it. Okay. I've been out of office retired from the police department in the end of 2016. And here we are, 4 years later. Wow. I'm ready to get
Yeah,
ready
it's
to get back in.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. Okay. All right, thanks. Now we're going to change up here a little bit. What is one of your favorite historic places in the village and why?
I like the Maidstone Inn. I
Mm-hmm.
just think I love sitting on that front porch,
Mm-hmm.
especially on a Sunday afternoon when all the cars are going by and you have that beautiful view of the cemetery
Mm-hmm.
and the windmill in the background.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite places in East Hampton.
Okay, great. Thanks. That's a great answer. Okay, switching up again. What percentage of the village tax base is residential and what percentage is commercial property? And the reason I ask that is if it would affect your decision making when the needs of those two constituencies may conflict.
Well, back in 2002, I think it was, or 2000, I think it was, when the comprehensive plan was
It was
being,
2002. It was adopted in 2002.
that's when it was adopted, but I think some of the data was
Oh yeah,
from
it took a couple of
2000.
years. Yes,
Right.
I think
So-
it started in 2000.
In that document, it says that the village was 60% residential
Okay.
at the time. So I'm assuming we're probably 80%, probably 80% residential. We've lost a few businesses. So I would say 80% residential and 20% commercial. And the residents will always take precedent over business. But I think there has to be a balance. We can't listen to one or two people. We have to listen to the majority. And that's the way I'm working for the majority. That's who I'm going to be elected, hopefully. And that's who I'm going to listen to, the majority of the people. If the majority wants something, that's how it works.
Okay,
So,
great. Thank you. So how do you frame the problem of expanding commercial uses in residential districts?
are we talking about the inns in this particular question, you think?
Well,
or-
I don't think the inn so much. It's not irrelevant, but I think it's more sort of the Airbnb and the VRBO where people are renting out their homes with greater frequency than village regulations currently permit, and it does tend to commercialize a residential neighborhood when some, I don't think anybody really cares that much if somebody wants to rent their house once or twice during the summer to get a little extra income, but the kind of turnover that Airbnb and some of these other
I am totally against short-term rentals. I think the law that the village has in place is appropriate, but I think it needs to be enforced. And I plan on doing that. I plan on having an office of business/tourism, which will also work with code enforcement on that specific issue. So I am there should not, that is so intrusive on neighborhoods. And it really doesn't, those short-term rentals where people come out just for the weekend and they pack a house and they bring their coolers and they're barbecuing, they're not bringing anything to our community except congestion on Friday night and Sunday afternoon. They're really not even going out to dinners. So they're really not even patronizing our local businesses. So, but I am, so we're all clear, I am in favor of, the longer term rentals, the month rentals, because a lot of people survive on that. And put their kids through college on that. That's what we did.
No, I understand. And that's not what, my board isn't really, and our members are not as that, the law as it's written now is satisfactory, I think, for everybody, because a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that, but it's just that the new era now of, the turnover and so forth that it's had, that's caused some concern among our members and our board.
Not funny, but ironic that, with COVID, that kind of went away.
It did, didn't it? Yeah, that's interesting because that's one of my other questions. I'll go to that question. I'll come back to something else. But in light of the coronavirus, how do you see the village providing for the needs of what seems to be an expanded year-round population?
Well, we're going to have to look at that really carefully because if the population does not go down like it normally does, we're going to need to increase our EMT services, our paramedic program.
Right.
The volunteers are already maxed out, and they can handle it, or, probably they put up with it for 2 months, but to be doing that year round, we either need to get a lot more volunteers, or we need to have a few more paid paramedics that will help, help the volunteers. They do a great job, and to overwhelm them every day just isn't fair.
Yeah. Okay, so switching up to how much will the sewage treatment plant cost, and how will this revenue be generated?
Well, I have a great idea for this. So I would like to, I'm estimating it's going to be between 30 and 40 million dollars.
Okay.
That's because I think West Hampton, when they just did theirs, came in somewhere around that.
Yeah, that's about
so. My plan would be to, let me back up, the Rudishan parking lot and the Skank parking lot. They have those little ticket spitter machines that you pull in and you get, we dispense almost 1 million of those little paper tickets a year.
Wow.
So if you use that number, use 1 million, because we don't, and we allow for the 2-hour parking in the parking lots. But after that, through a parking app system similar to what they have at East Hampton Airport, we could charge for that 3rd hour.
Right.
And we can also do that on the streets. After the 1 hour is up, we could then charge for additional parking if you wanted to stay on the street. And I'm hoping that will generate enough money that we could use that money to pay. So let's say we make between $3 and $5 million on parking a year. We could then take that money. This is going to be a lot easier if we have full-time clientele. We wouldn't just be.
Well, yes. That'll increase revenues. Yeah.
Right. But if we could earmark that money to put towards the sewer system or pay back the bond, the money that we borrow to install this, I think it's a great plan. I've ran it by store owners, and nobody I have talked to has had an issue with it. And it's just such a simple idea, and it helps the stores, because one of the biggest complaints that I heard visiting all of the stores is that people don't have enough time. 2 hours is not enough time to shop. They can't shop, have lunch, and shop. They've got to get back to their car because the 2 hours is up.
Right.
And they have to leave the lot. It's not even like you can just move
now
from
I
one
know.
parking
Yeah,
spot.
you got to go out.
So you have to leave the lot.
Right.
And they're not coming back.
Right.
And it's friendlier.
Yeah.
So instead of you're out, you're shopping, you're spending a ton of money, and then you come back to your car and you have an $80 parking ticket. There's nothing more mean than that. And the village only makes about $500,000 a year only on parking tickets. So I think
it's not a big revenue stream. Yeah.
Right. I think in the scheme of things, it's not a big revenue stream, but to be friendly and offer more parking, help the businesses, I think it's a win all the way around.
Okay.
I'm even thinking we could even go further and say, if you're a resident of the village or town, you would receive your 2 hours in the parking lot free and the 1 hour on the street. But if you're not a resident, you would pay maybe immediately.
Right.
So those are things we have to work out, but that's the concept, Kathy.
That's a good idea.
That's where we get the easy money to pay back something that's going to go into the business district. So the business district is really paying for something they need. Right. Instead of all of us in the village having to pay tax money to it, and your taxes go up. So that's my idea.
Okay. Thank you. So what do you think about, we only have a few more minutes. I'm going to ask you to tighten up
so fast.
if you don't mind. It does go so fast, but we're trying to fit into a viewing schedule here. So I've got quick ones for you. 3 quick ones. What do you think about the outside dining in the commercial district that, has been implemented in view of the pandemic?
I started my campaign in April of 2019. That was on my agenda from day one. That's what I wanted to do. We don't even have to have the septic system installed to do it, because what I said we could do, same thing Sag Harbor did, is on a beautiful day, Golden Pear would have the option of putting, if they have 10 tables inside, they could put 3 outside, just reduce the number. It doesn't change the flow rate of the septic. Right. And it's a win for everyone. Okay. And it's perfect. It's lovely. You drive through and there's there's people on the street. It looks lively. It's very nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm trying to answer quickly because I know you've.
I know you're doing good. Okay, so the next one, with beach access in such high demand, why is the village still selling non-resident beach permits? This would be, your opinion about that. Obviously, you wouldn't know. Exactly.
Well, I've talked to different people about this. Some people agree that we shouldn't sell any more non-resident beach permits. And then I talked to people who actually work at the beaches, and they say the beaches are dead. There's not. But on the weekends, it is busy. So maybe there's some way to sell weekday
someplace in between
beach permits. Maybe I also had an idea of doing seasonal monthly beach permits. So right now people buy from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Let's just call it that for simply. Why not, if you're only here for a month, why not sell for July and then recycle that permit again in August?
It's a good idea.
So those are all things that I want to look at. And it's funny you brought that up because I heard that recently from someone that we shouldn't be doing any more non-resident permits. But again, the revenue is hard to turn away. Especially if you're not overcrowding.
Yeah. So I have one last question here. I'm sorry, there's a fly buzzing me.
I was wondering what you were doing.
I know, it went right into my ear a minute ago. With the benefit of hindsight, is there anything in your professional life that you might have done differently, that you look back on and wish you had done differently?
No.
Okay.
Only because when I first became a police officer, I've always, my whole life, I wanted to be a police officer. So there's nothing else I ever wanted to do. And so I knew what I wanted to do. I actually was hired by New York City Police Department first. And I was a part-time officer here in East Hampton working under Glenn Stonemetz. Well, I got called back and I had to choose to work with the village or the town. And I really wanted to go with the town because, I mean, you know me, I can't sit still. I'm like a workaholic. I have to constantly go. And the village is much smaller and there's a lot less activity in the village. So I always kicked myself. I should have went with the town police, until I started going through the ranks. And the next thing you know, I'm chief. So I have no regrets. None.
Well, good for you.
I loved my job.
All right. That's great. So, Jerry, I want to thank you for spending this time with us. I want to thank all the fine folks at LTV. We had a challenging day here today, and Danielle persevered to her great credit. I want to wish you great good luck in the election, Jerry. And
thank you, Kathy.
All our viewers, please get out and vote. It's an important thing to do. Exercise your franchise, especially women. This is the 100th anniversary, the centennial celebration of women's suffrage, the right to vote. So let's get out there, ladies, and do it to it.
And vote for me.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
Well, I can't say that, but you can. Okay. Thanks a lot, Jerry. Bye now.
All right. Take care. Bye.